It's been really good with the new schedule and the signing day adjustment, moving it up in December. Obviously, this week has been busy. Really excited about the flash sale that's going out for the tickets. I've kind of, been out there in the community, and I do want to express, this staff and myself going back to December. I have not turned down one opportunity or request, and honestly, I enjoy getting out there with the community, so hopefully they come out and support our student athletes who have been so good and giving back to our community. But signing day was Wednesday. We had practice, big ball game this weekend, and so I thought our staff handled it really good. I think this whole process of signing the 25 class, I kind of sum it up in two words: process and people. The school visits in December, starting there whenever we could be on the road, getting here and getting communication going with the 2025 class started almost immediately after securing the 2024 group. You get visits, you get calls, and then obviously we have junior days, spring ball visits, and there's so many people that are involved in that. But as you continue down the path of getting to securing the 2025 class and all the great people in it and families, spring evaluation, was really good. We were really aggressive. I don't know if other schools will change based on what we did, but I think I was gone at one point for 23 or 24 nights out of 28 days. And I can honestly say I enjoyed that. I really do like recruiting. I like traveling. My wife probably supports it more than I would like her to. She kind of enjoys it, but it was really good. And then you take the process, right, and you enter into June. And it's amazing. Again, 79% of these student athletes attended our football camp. We will not change our football camp. Our football camp is still the best opportunity for kids to be coached and developed. And then at the same time, we get a chance to evaluate those guys. We're so pleased with what our camp does for this community, what our camp does for us in the recruiting world, but also it's something we take a lot of pride in giving back, to the region and to the high school coaches and the high school players that get a chance to get better. And then this year was the first time in June, that we were different. We official visited 14 guys. I think we hit on 9 of those. And that was a challenge when you're talking about a camp on the front end and a camp on the back end. We had all those visitors going on. So I appreciate our assistant coaches, especially the ones that are fathers, for the sacrifice that they made during June, because June wasn't this, hang out with your players, have a couple camps. I mean, we were sticking and moving. And I do think going out and attacking a couple of these individuals at other campuses was a big bonus for us, and we'll continue to do that moving forward. But not sacrificing anything that we do with our youth camp for the community and the high school camp that we run on campus here. And then getting to people, right? Great job by our in-house people. I'm not going to say thank you because it's their job, it's their role in this thing, but my hat goes off to the job that they did, starting with, Jamison Brown, being a young guy, still trying to learn, but he was good, and he set up a lot of things. Rachel Kazar in Margie Trickle's role now, she meets and greets people at restaurants, and we've set her schedule up a little different, and she really has an understanding of football recruiting, and she's been phenomenal. All of our assistant coaches starting with their sacrifice, in June away from their families. But a special thanks to Nate and BJ, with equipment, all the setup that they do, and the photo shoots are crazy. Colleen Heimstead and her putting up with me and my questions, and sometimes they're not questions. It's like I'm trying to get something done, and she makes sure I'm on the right page. Kelly Lehman and her academic staff not only continues to get it done on campus, but with recruiting, she makes an impact because she understands the athletic world, and I'm so grateful for her and her efforts. Our administration and our faculty, specifically the professors, they not only showed up and presented, but I thought they helped us close these students out. And again, when you're asking them to do stuff in the middle of summer, a Saturday or a Sunday, they have never let us down, and it's been great. And the Bison Football Players Association, led by Brett Terveen, Taveen, we asked them to do some unique things this year, within the rules and the confines of things, but them coming and helping us during fall camp and getting pictures and photos of how our operation works, they've really stepped up. They stepped up on Giving Day. I do want to say thanks to all the supporters that got us to our target and freed up our mark. I mean, it's just remarkable, all the things going on right now. And then I got to do this really quick, guys. I just hang in there with me. But Fargo in June is a special place. It's where our kids need to still see it. We're not trying to keep them away from December and January and February, but the Delta Hotel unbelievable. Herd and Horns has become a mainstay with all of our tailgate recruiting events and the meals that they get. The recruits have to pay for it, but it's been awesome. Doolittle's and the Radisson Blue. I think Lindy's the ice cream deal and the combination of sweet shots and some of the things that we did with the city tour, just phenomenal. The lights was awesome. Brewhalla for a parent social and getting them out and seeing Fargo. And Shields continues to be an unbelievable supporter. Congratulations to everything that they've got going on, and to Mr. Shield on his recent award, and to many, many more. So when you look at the breakdown of the class, I'm not going to get into this state-by-state thing and all this stuff. I want to get to your guys' questions. But number one, culture fit. Team and program mindset was at the forefront when we're looking at these guys. Do they relate, and can they eventually embrace our team's core values in all areas, social, academic, and football-wise, obviously. Physical traits and physical ability, very, very critical. But we want kids that want to reach their full potential. That means they have to want to improve and they have to want to be coached. And I think all 32 of these guys do want to do that. 18 on defense, 14 on offense. We're continuing to look for a potential backup punter. I like where we're at with our punting situation going into next year with Aaron, but that'll be a position that we continue to look for and look at. 2 QBs, 5 secondary players, 3 corners, 2 safeties, 7 D linemen. Elijah, provides some flexibility there, but 4 DNs, 3 D tackles, 6 linebackers. I thought that was really important for our special teams and for the defense. 5 offensive linemen, 2 running backs and 2 receivers, 3 tight ends. Now, these guys are much more in the receiving category, and we were conscious of that. And so we're going to need our football team to still continue to be bridging that gap of blocking and catching the ball, because these guys will need time to develop as blockers. But overall, just unbelievably successful with the process. And then, like I said, without the people in this program, without the people on campus in our athletic department, and then the Fargo food services and what we have to offer is much, much better than people give it credit for. Fargo is our hidden gem, just like the Fargo Dome when it's rocking. And again, I want to come back to that. Let's just make sure our players, feel appreciative, and we have a home field advantage tomorrow with the flash sale to midnight tonight. With that, I'll open it up for questions.
Held on to the vast majority of these guys for a long time. We knew they were committed a while ago. Kind of what's the sense of relief like with pen finally to paper here on the majority of these recruits?
The type of families that we were recruiting, it's a good question, Devin, because it's deeper than you think. Anybody that would get offered by Minnesota or Wisconsin in those states, I just have a hard time not picking the phone up and saying congratulations, because I know where they're really at. But the fact of the matter is that most of these families provided us some comfort and allowing us to feel like, hey, this is a done deal. Like, we're just sick of recruiting, and then we can move on to where you're really getting to know them and having real conversations. But there were a few of these guys I was a little nervous up until Wednesday morning getting the call, because of some of the transactional stuff that was happening leading up to Wednesday on college campuses. Every kid that potentially chooses to leave creates opportunity for that school now to go into their home state and grab somebody. And so it's signing day. It's a celebration, right? It's a celebration of a year to 18 months of work with a lot of these guys and a lot of these families, and we're so appreciative for all the return visits. That's what I like about this class, is I look at it and I can say 5, 6 encounters. 2, 3, 4 encounters where they were on campus. And so the Wednesday was awesome.
How different is recruiting for NDSU now than it was for you 8 years ago when you were out on the road?
Different. Well, the June stuff in May, I really don't. The schedule is the schedule. The calendar is the calendar. But I think for some of our assistant coaches, it's a lot of change. I mean, April, with the addition of the portal thing and some of that stuff, just April and May and June are not the same anymore. It used to be my favorite time of the year, and it's still up there, but now it's completely different because you're on the gas, and the level of intensity is high. Before, you were going out there and you were gathering names, you were methodically doing the job. I just think now everything is critical, and I've always been a believer that everything matters, but we always have to be closing, A, B, C, year-round.
This is, as far as I can ever remember, as early as you had a couple of kids that were committed elsewhere, flip or however you say it, but for the most part, you were done as early as I've ever seen. What was that like, kind of transitioning to more of a retention of your class for the last 4 months or 5 months, as
Yeah.
opposed to trying to get kids in August, September, October?
Yep. Some of the key elements to that is just knowing when the signing date was. There wasn't going to be as many opportunities. As much as I like official visits during football season, I like winning games more, and I like paying attention to our players more than I do recruiting. And that's a good sell to the class right now, right, and to the parents. The players on our campus are most important, but I just think it's a product of the times, right? Like, people are moving faster. That signing date's coming up right around the corner. The fact that I can go out and sit with a kid in school, in May, and have contact with them now, as long as they're released from their school, or on campus there, they don't have class and things like that, really makes for our conversations to be different. They make them more meaningful. You're able to move it forward. And then I just think, South Dakota State's not moving any slower. South Dakota's not moving any slower. We're all kind of working at this pace. And so opportunities, when a kid's making a decision, I simply tell them, which opportunities don't you want to lose out on? And you guys got to get in your car and figure it out. But 2 people got in their cars and then turned around and came up the escalator and said, we want to be Bison. And so it was really neat that way. We're going to recruit. We're going to recruit really aggressively. And I think this staff, I know myself, the leadership on the staff is really comfortable evaluating the regional talent. I think the further away you get from our region, the more uncomfortable you are, especially if they haven't been on campus.
Normally, in a general recruited class, you would have a quarterback. You got 2 here.
Yeah.
That have something to do with Kilser moving to wide receiver and you kind of having a gap in the classes there, or how'd this come to be?
No, he's his own. I mean, we gave him a shot at quarterback and then saw some athleticism. Jake, probably is in the right spot right now for him at receiver. It had nothing to do with it. What it had to do with is that, I'm pretty darn committed to being here for a while, right? And I know to be good, you got to be good at quarterback. And when you come across a guy like Preston Brown, and you're able to sit with his family up in the new indoor facility and simply say to him, Monday is going to be Xander's day, and they nod their head yes. All of a sudden, you're sitting in front of a really cool family that gets it. The one thing I ask those guys is that it would be a shame if you're not a 3-year starter at NDSU, one way or another. You've got a year and a half to turn on the gas at quarterback and get in this competition. Show us what you're doing, but at that point, we'd like you to tell us that you're committed to trusting us and potentially moving to a different spot. So he's a quarterback today, and he will be for a year and a half. But I know at that point he can play football for us somewhere. If he's not the starting quarterback, everything that him and his family have told me, they'd be open to a move and a change. And so to add that kind of athlete, that kind of tool, right? Like, when I started out in college football, and then you advance at 10, I think you should sign 4 or 5 quarterbacks in every class. They're the best athlete on the football team. Like, you need to take quarterbacks and then figure it out as you go.
You also gave an athlete designation to Charles Ross. Is he a corner safety, or is he more of a Raja?
No, he's running back. I mean, he's coming in as a running back. Okay, I think you train him at running back first, and then you get a chance that first spring, you start teaching him some slot stuff. You hope he's involved in the special teams game. He's an offensive weapon. And I think that it could be really neat to have Miles and Ross on the field at the same time at some point. 2 backs in the backfield that can threaten you in the pass game is pretty remarkable. Or to be in a situation where you can motion a back out and he's a receiving threat. Charles is a really good athlete. Charles had some up and down. He's so active. He had some up and down performances within his 40-yard dash. He performed great in the 40-yard dash for us. And then he caught every ball that I threw to him. And I was trying to throw it as good as I could. And it was impressive as far as his hands. And Jake Landry just kept gaining ground. And so we're really excited about Money Mitchell and Charles Ross.
Is Xander Smith a prototypical quarterback in the sense of he's a pocket passer, or is
No.
how much movement
I
he have?
think prototypical has changed a lot. If you can't extend plays, it gets to be really difficult. I've lived that world a couple times, and I don't know if I'd ever be open to that. I think Xander's a much better athlete than you guys are giving him credit for. You got to remember he came off major shoulder, right? So if anything, he was just a little bit strong and heavy, weight-wise. I think that this guy, we get him down into the 225 range, he runs above the average for sure, and he's powerful and strong. You know, some quarterbacks like Easton can beat you all sorts of ways. You know, Cam's kind of like that. He beats you in different ways, you know, and Xander, I think, is going to be able to move the ball with the quarterback run game, but he's a quarterback that can manage protections. He's a quarterback that can manage the run game. He's a football junkie. I asked him, like, really insightful, okay, what do you got this week? Middle of field open or close? Coach, they're middle of field close, and they're a pressure team, and we got some matchups I really like. I mean, this guy is really sharp, and he's mature for his age, and I really, really appreciate both quarterbacks, but Xander's been on top of it.
You have 6 kids in this class of linebacker designation. Are there some that could graduate physically to defensive end, or you feel pretty comfortable with that number at 6?
Well, I feel comfortable with it, especially going through, like, some of our injuries and the ups and downs and, like, our depth being as good as it is. And I know the people that you have to beat in this league right now. You better be good in the O-line and the D-line and linebacker and tight ends. And they better be physical, and they better be able to hit and put their face on people. That over time, that takes multiple guys. But, yes, I mean, Damian Devine is 6'3" plus. Okay, Gavin Sell wouldn't surprise me if all of a sudden 2 years from now he's 6'3". I mean, he's just – I don't think he's grown into his body. But those guys are coming in at linebacker. They deserve the opportunity to play linebacker, just like some of our DNs. Thomas Roberts, it would not shock me if he was much bigger than he is now down the road. You know, he's a 6'3.5" kid that's 225 pounds, but big frame. You know, so you're just looking for big frames that can run. And I have a hard time passing those guys up.
Coach, also looking at these offensive linemen, how important is that you're bringing in these big guys to bolster up your O-line?
No, I like some of the cooler personalities on here are not the O-linemen, but they had – you know, the ability and the physical gifts and their mindset. I haven't been this excited about an O-line group for a minute. I mean, I think the crew that Iowa's playing with right now, those guys all came in together, was interesting. Gavin Wang, I think when we started the process, when I first saw him, he was 231 pounds. I met with him saw him playing tennis. Met with the high school coach on the tennis court, and I'm like, this guy's going to be a guy. And, you know, and then the process starts, and then he's standing out there with Cordell Volson. A couple of our Nash was at practice, I think, and he's standing there, and he looked like those guys. And he was about 252, and now he's 273. You know, and you know what? The one guy you guys aren't talking about enough is Brett Tasted. Okay, Brett Tasted is the best O-lineman in the state. All right, and we got him. Okay. And it was calculated, if Brett wasn't hurt, he would be right in here with this group, and we just happened to rock along. But he's walking on, but he is not a walk-on. He is a very good player that, again, same story. Like when I first met that kid, maybe 220 pounds, and now he's in the 75 range. His brother's already up to 74 or 75, 275. And so, I mean, I think the world of him. And then James Nellis is really mature. I mean, I love talking to him. He's talking about all sorts of things that maybe like a 25 or a 26-year-old would be talking about. Ryan Babbitt's, you know, physically really, really gifted, and I think he's coming out of his shell, and I can't wait. I promised his mom and dad that we would help him continue to develop as a person. And when he comes out of his shell, he's going to be an unbelievable leader for us. And I like Alex Warden. I just really like the fact, you know, that his parents, you know, where they're from. You know, we've got a lot of background with Bayport. All those guys are really good.
A long history of taking 250-pound guys and making them 300-pound All-Americans. He's already 293. What is his like physical capability, and could he be one that helps you earlier?
Yeah, just still like yes, he will compete. He'll compete with the top 10 or 12 guys the day he gets here because of his physical maturity. Comes from a program and a coach there that really understands the weight room and development, and he just continues to get better at his craft. He loves the craft part, working at the fundamentals. I met him. He had a full beard at Wyoming. And I was like, gosh, I called the coach right away. I ran out of there. I said, Coach, just slow your roll, because for guys like myself, is this guy already at his ceiling? He said, Coach, I promise he's going to keep getting better. And then Dan was on him, and his film was getting better and better and better, just like all these guys. But James is different that way. James is much more like big Zach Johnson, you know, the first one. And, you know, a little bit, he's not like Nashy Poo. Nash, you know, when he signed or he came on his official visit was 372. And I think he was running through the gym or something. I don't know what the heck, at a visit or was at a school, and he dunked the basketball. And so he's closer to that than he is the typical lean guy.
Speaking of guys coming in at a certain weight, Gabriel Cunningham already at 6'4", 2'4". Traditionally, tight ends haven't really played much in their freshman year, but do you feel like he's already kind of near that playing weight maybe?
Yeah, Lindenwood's camp, we went down there and targeted a couple guys, or a few guys, right? And we went down there to recruit them. And out of nowhere, this guy just continues to win one-on-ones. The guy he's beating is a guy at the camp that got like 18 Big Ten offers. And he was beating them. And I found his mom up in the stands and kind of waved to her, just to give her a heads up that, here we go. And we started communication after that and was able to offer him. And Gabriel's interesting because he'll get faster, and then he's going to lean out some. I wouldn't be shocked if he actually, body fat-wise comes down a little bit and then goes back up. But he's a really unique, he's a special pass-receiving tight end that has a lot of enthusiasm. I really appreciated getting to know, his parents and things like that. I mean, they were just awesome. Deanna and Devonta, were just tremendous. They have a lot of spirit and energy, and you see where he gets his juice from. I like that kid a lot. But along with Noah Nelson, right, he's more in the typical, the Hawley kid. Like, I don't think he's that far off from some of the guys that have been really good players here in the past as well.
You got a couple guys enrolling early. How big a deal is that? Xander's one. Money's going to be here. Donovan Woolen did that. He's playing. Is that a trajectory to get on the field next season?
Yeah, I get a little bit concerned. I get a little bit concerned with guys that want to do it that don't have the maturity level. They need the spring yet in high school, to start to develop the skills of being on their own. But Miles Mitchell, his mom is an unbelievable person. And Miles had her up here on the official visit, and she's a great person. But I saw a kid that was very mature and ready to go. And so I supported that. That's a really good story there. And then Xander's been living with his brother in Lakeland. She lives in, Braderton, Holly. And so I thought his maturity level, and for a quarterback, it's really going to be key for him to get the playbook out of the way, some of the fundamentals, and be able to come in and start to operate the offense. And all those reps he's going to gain over the summer on in the throwing sessions on their own and stuff like that is awesome. I'm not opposed to it one way or another. I said this last year. I'm a little bit like Coach Ferentz. I would never push it. But if a guy's willing and wants to do it, come on, let's rock and roll. I think with skill guys, the way that my approach is going to be, the more we can have come on campus early, the better. Because I'd like to see if we can play those guys in 4 games and get them on the field and let's go. I just don't see the point in waiting with some of the stuff.
A lot of these guys come from, the traditional pipelines that you'd expect in North Dakota State, but how important is it for you to keep that kind of presence around Tampa, around in Texas, those kind of farther outreaching areas?
Well, anywhere we're putting, anywhere we're spending money, we need to produce or we need to move on. I mean, that's my approach on it. Like, and on top of that, time is expensive. Okay, so to go in there and be able to get a couple guys that culturally fit and like I said, embrace our core values that can fit into this thing is really, really important. A lot of these guys are playing high-level football, but at the same time, Jamarian Moore from Madison Memorial came here for camp, and he's competing at a high level. That's Tyrone Braxton's old high school. I think it's the last guy we got out of there was Tyrone Braxton. And so I don't know if it matters where they come from. There's been years we've been shut out in Wisconsin. I think 2012 was one of those, and Coach Bowl gave us one of those, one of these deals. And then, like, the next year we signed 7. Well, I could talk about that class that we didn't have anybody. There's some pretty famous guys right now that we liked, and we just didn't close the gap on it. I don't really care where they come from, but Minnesota, Wisconsin, North Dakota, South Dakota, we have to make people come in there and beat us. Kind of like tomorrow, right? Like, they got to beat us tomorrow, make them earn it.
You touched on this some, but how's this week been for you? Because you're preparing for a game, you're trying to close out recruiting, you've got multiple media obligations. I assume you're keeping an eye on the transfer portal to maybe look for opportunities. You're selling tickets, you're making popcorn, whatever else you're doing.
The bye week allows you to do it all. It would be really something if you were going back-to-back, having to play in the first round. Rachel's been awesome. She's had my calendar, boom, 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 and there's a couple other meetings that we had to have in there too. But actually, I mentioned this, I really enjoy being busy. I think all this stuff is fun. To talk about the families that came up here and things like that. And I know, like on Hot Mike, I didn't get a chance to mention Brody Clubb, Chase Evink, Blake Schultz. I mean, those guys are all really good players. Jacob Wabernick is going to be something, man. It's been busy, and I think our staff has done a really good job preparing the team. I really liked the way we moved around last night. That gave me a lot of confidence that I didn't put my energy in too many other spots.
Coach, you guys have signed, obviously these players are coming in, but it's more than just that, these families that are now being added to, your guys' program. How important is it that you've made these connections with them over these past however months?
Well, like I said, I think that we're doing a really good job getting 26s on campus all year. It was the same for this class, right? Anytime I look at the sheet and I say, man, this guy's been, okay, let's take Jamarian Moore. I don't know how comfortable I was with him until we got his parents on the official visit 2 weeks ago. And his mom looked at me and she said, this place is unbelievable. I see why he loves you guys. I'm in total support of this coach, outside of phone calls and those kind of things. And, I think the multiple contacts with these guys, as far as them getting on campus here and seeing all 4 seasons in Fargo, is the difference maker. I'm going to say it. Like, we lost out on a really good player in Denver because we weren't able to capitalize on getting his mother here. And he's going to have a wonderful career at Wyoming, and it was probably the right choice for him. And that all occurred basically on Monday or Sunday, and I'm perfectly fine with it. We needed to have guys that have sustainability, be able to recruit, retain, and graduate our program's people. And the more that they get on campus, the more those relationships are strong with the parents and things like that, the better. Tonight we have, can I mention it now that they're signed? Who's on campus? Colleen? No, I can't. Okay. We have a couple of signed guys that are going to be here for their official visit. It's going to be a totally different thing where you can really enjoy the trip. There's no pressure. You just get to be, the relationship's real. That's an interesting one, Colleen. We'll have to.
You got this now, the ink is dry, and you can see this class, you understand your own depth. If there are positions now where you are maybe looking in the portal where you have identified on either offense or defense, maybe a 3rd or 4th year guy next year?
I think there's still a couple things. We got a guy that could go to medical school, on our team. Currently, right now, we would be proactive, potentially with an older defensive back, potentially active with a pass rusher. Okay, outside of that, I'm still really comfortable with the team. I think it's really hard. The one thing I wish everybody that covers these sports and covers the portal would understand, it's really hard for us to find an O or D lineman that could come in here and interject into the top 2 deep. Okay, those kids actually that we feel like that about could play here and help us are going immediately to the P-Force. Big guys are really hard to find. So I'm kind of hopeful that, you get a phone call or something, and maybe there's we got some young tackles that are going to have a lot of pressure on them in the O-line starting tomorrow. And then Monday again and Tuesday, we got to get them up and running. Really, my approach is to be open to anything and everybody. I think we have a little bit of wiggle room with our scholarship count and where that thing will all end up. But that's the gymnastics behind it. And with the 105 situation in schools, the more knowledge I gain on that, I really think that we'll probably be a little more active in the second window than we will now.
9-man guys, bringing in 3 of them. How important is it to look in those small town 9-man level?
Just as important as it is to look in the big cities. And I think over time what I've learned is, people can not reach their full potential in your program for a lot of different reasons. Small town kids are a little different than a kid that's been playing, organized football for 12 years of their lives already. You know what I mean? So I think what we have to do is get into our areas, our states, and we have to cultivate and harvest our crops every year. And you have to know good players can come from anywhere, and we have to be open-minded about those guys. I think sometimes skill kids are a little bit more different, but Walker is a good example of a guy that's going to jump in this weight room, and he's going to improve physically. He's going to improve with speed. He's going to improve his jumping. He's going to put weight on. I mean, he's a 4-sport athlete. And that's where those guys are kind of cool because you see so much growth and development so fast. I love it. being in small towns and being in big towns, there's advantages to both, and we got to be open-minded about all of it.